Hello, wonderful, and we are live. Thank you so much for coming in this Friday on a day when I know so many people are out there being busy. It is that epic Friday where everyone goes shopping, whether it's online or in person. I know everyone is out there being busy. Well, today on the Leadership Heart podcast, I want to bring us back in and challenge our assumptions, our ways of looking at ourselves, to really take the time to buy into ourselves, to buy into the opportunity to explore ourselves around conscious leadership, around how do we ignite that flame of self love within. So instead of having to pay for some things we can acquire, let's take our own equity and put it into ourselves. To ask ourselves some great questions. If you were going to buy the best course in the world, what would it be? What would it look like? What new ways or ideas could it give us? So that's what I want to talk about today about conscious leadership and going within and share a few stories that I've had this week as a conscious leader and doing the work that I do to ignite people around the world. So what is conscious leadership? Conscious leadership is that opportunity as we awaken. If you look at the adult learning theory, it's a process, it's a transformational steps that we take day in, day out through our lifetime. It's about asking ourselves to evolve, to develop, to move beyond our basic needs, to look at ourselves from within to without, as my beautiful mentor Rex Sykes always says, from within to without. So I'm going to ask, and I'm going to ask you today to dive into yourself, to open yourself to possibilities, to ignite your own heart in new ways. So going back to the adult theory, the adult learning theory, there are many stages that we can go through as adults. We're growing as we're acquiring, we're learning and growing. And in doing so, we have to dive in. This is the opportunity for growth today, is to look at our values, our beliefs, our habits, our thoughts, our behaviors. And ultimately, in each of these things, we can grow. But what if in this process of growing, maybe perhaps we have some limiting beliefs that keep us from fully opening to love ourselves, to embrace ourselves? So I want you to ask yourself a question. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, could be 10 being the highest, how do you see yourself today? Are you open to growth? On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. On a scale of 1 to 10, do you feel that you're a conscious leader? 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel? How do you feel about yourself? 1 being the lowest, 10 being the highest. On a scale of 1 to 10, how engaged are you today to lean in, to learn some new tips, strategies, techniques, ways of looking at ourselves to ignite that flame of self-love within on a scale of 1 to 10? The reason I'm purposely asking you these things at the start of this podcast is so that you can engage yourself in the present moment, to ask yourself these key critical questions. You know, throughout this week, maybe, perhaps for you, it's been just chaotic. Maybe it's been crazy. Maybe you've been just so focused on what you had to do that you had to do it, but you didn't take the time to look at yourself. And maybe some things are starting to show up for you. It was an interesting week for me too. And I always bring these back each week to new lessons that I can share, that I have lived. We have to live these experiences in order to share them. So, in igniting my own flame of self love this week, what I had to do is lean in and answer those questions. I had to honestly ask myself, how was I looking at myself? And what I found in these moments this week of great exploration was in what we call this, it's called clear leadership. It's a really interesting opportunity to look and to grow, and it does help us become more conscious leaders. Gervais Bush created this model, and it's called clear leadership. And what it allows us to look at is four different quadrants, and we call this walking the cube. Walking the cube is how can we build a relationship with ourselves and a relationship with others? And I found by going through this cube, I had to go back in and dig in and ignite my own flame of self love because I had unearthed a couple things about myself. So within those quadrants, and please go and check out his book, it's a fantastic book called Clear Leadership. In the first of the quadrants was O for observation. And I'll go through the quadrants and hopefully you'll take up his book. I think it's fantastic. I love to share and stand on the shoulders of these great masters. The first one is observation. The second quadrant is thinking. The next quadrant is thinking, and feeling is the third quadrant. The fourth quadrant is what do you want? And when you go through and walk through this cube exercise, what you're able to do is look at your situations, look at yourself and circumstances so much more clearly. And in this wonderful work, what I found very helpful that helped me ignite my flame of self love is I realized I don't ask for what I want as much as perhaps I should. So let's give you an example. Say you want to have a better relationship with someone you're working with. And maybe perhaps that your way of communicating with them, maybe a little bit muddied. Perhaps you're not as clear as you'd like to be, or perhaps fear is showing up and you're not sure about this person and how you should be working with them. And so you're generally just having a conversation about something that you're working together on. And what happens? Hmm, Maybe people are making up stories for themselves that are not in alignment with how the other person is thinking. And what happens? You get conflict, don't you? So, what I found through using this cube, I was able to go within and evoke my observer and look at the hard data. What was showing up? What was being said? So, I actively observed myself in that relationship. Then I went over and I began to focus on what I was thinking. What was I actually thinking about this situation that was occurring in that present moment? And when we're in our thinking place, not being focused on what we're feeling or what we want or what we're observing, we can be more present with ourselves. And what I realized in that how I was thinking was not as purposeful, was not helping me understand. So I had to ask myself, what was I thinking purposely, like actually stopping to think, what was I thinking? And then I shifted to see what was it making me feel? What was happening for me in that moment when I was out of sync with that other person? The reality was, as a conscious leader, that I realized in that moment that I had been making up stories and that I had made up stories that I didn't understand. I only can have my own personal perspective. That everyone in the world has different perspectives. We know this, but when you catch yourself in that moment, what happens? You go, wow, why was I not aware of this? I had thought it, but then I was in this moment of realizing it, realizing that person is separate from me, self differentiation. They were separate from me. They had a different story, different experience than what I was experiencing. And this is why I'm always advocating for great books and other resources that you can take away as well. So I really focused on what I was feeling, and then I went on what did I want? How did I want to change that conversation? And through this beautiful tool, I was able to raise my consciousness. And I actually challenged myself to look at myself more clearly. Just think about yourself for a moment. Think of your last situation when maybe you just weren't jiving with someone. There was just this interesting kind of uncomfortableness or discord or just plain out misunderstanding. Why did you have that misunderstanding? It comes right back to the essence of how we look, how we think, how we feel, how we process. And in particular, again, I go back to the feelings. If we're not able to pull back and take the time to explore, we're really not fully being in that present moment. So, conscious leaders are actively engaged in learning new tools and strategies to build that relationship, that rapport with other people. And I found this was a wonderful tool. So again, it's called Clear Leadership by Gervais Bush, Busche. He's got a great book. It's a great course. I advocate for anyone to, if you want to build your rapport and relationships, it's a great tool to use. So shifting a little bit, I want to kind of go back into some other key learnings that I had this week, other strategies and tools that I utilize to ignite my flame of self-love. So now that I'm learning all these additional ways of really anchoring in what I wanted, I realized that stepping back, I looked back in my past history and I realized that how I had grown up had had an influence on my ability to openly speak what I wanted. So I took the time, and I'm going to offer for your reflection as well. Go back and look at times in your past. Are there habits? Are there patterns of how you were previously raised, how your parents raised you? Did they invite you to share, what do you want? Conscious leaders are open to sharing what they're thinking, what they're feeling, what they want. And so I had to go back and revisit, and I realized again that I have not, through my history, been very, and I'm mindful of the words I speak because what we speak becomes reality. So, my current understanding is that I have not been very strong, as I define strong, in speaking what I want clearly from my own perspective. So, that's something that showed up for me this week. So, go back. Don't spend too long. You don't need to be there very long. Just go back and write down on a little timeline what are some things that perhaps are showing up for you in terms of either how you observe, how you want, how you express your feelings, your thinking. There's little patterns there that showed up. And when then we take the chance and we make the choice to say, yes, I commit to doing something unique and different for myself to move my life forward. Here's the next steps that I used. One of them is absolutely to go back into meditation, to take the time to self-care, to breathe in, allow yourself the time just to be calm. Allow yourself to self-love, to give yourself that grace, that love, the hug, whatever it is that you need today to be okay with today. So I had to go back in and accept the acceptance of myself. It is okay. I'm growing, I'm evolving. I'm committed to my own personal growth. So I chose to focus on that this week as well. So much learning is possible if we make the opportunities available to ourselves. So quiet yourself, quiet your mind. Be open to all that is around you. And that's why I really enjoyed learning some new strategies through looking and walking through the clear leadership, walking the cube, as we called it, being able to look at my timeline, challenge myself, and how could I pick one or two things I wanted to invite new opportunities to do. And that's what I did this week. And I'm so excited. So when I look back and I reflect back and I give myself a hug, I go, wow, I did some good work this week. The other thing that I found this week too is having vulnerability. So I want you to ask yourself, what have you done this week or you will do next week or today or tomorrow or every day to show yourself to be more vulnerable? Interesting question, isn't it? Let's think about that. How do we show vulnerability? How comfortable are we with vulnerability? It goes back again, doesn't it? If we're concerned with showing our vulnerability because of perhaps how we've been programmed, repatterned in our mind, we have to say, okay, wait, I need to show more vulnerability because I want to build those relationships with myself and with others. So through this process of going through this cube, I had to, again, purposely show vulnerability. I had to show up. I had to commit to myself to show love to myself. So I opened up and I shared my stories. That was also a powerful learning for me this week. Is just being open. The importance for me, as I conclude this quick little podcast today about conscious leadership and igniting that flame of self-love, is having courage, being vulnerable, trying some new strategies that help you build relationship with yourself and with others. I go back to the 1 to 10. How confident are you that you can change on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 not being very strong at all, 10 being super strong and confident. Ask yourself this. What are you hearing yourself speak? What are you hearing yourself say to yourself in your internal dialogue right now? If it's not positive, choose to change it. Move yourself from a perhaps less than glorious number to a higher powerful number. Make the choice to do that, and you begin today. If you're anywhere below 7, then there's opportunities absolutely to shift your mindset, to shift your energies, to shift yourself, to be that courageous person out there, to show up, to build these relationships. Walk the cube, as I say. Show up, challenge yourself. Because each and every one of us has opportunities to break through. So what is a breakthrough? A breakthrough is those aha moments in life where we go, I've got that. Something just clicked for me. I'm no longer going to struggle. I'm no longer going to define myself by someone else's opinion of myself. I'm choosing and I'm waking up to the realization that I've got one life, one powerful life and opportunity to live it how I want to live it, how I want to build the relationships with myself and with others. I am not dependent or reliant or perhaps even stuck on an old way of being. These are all things that came to me this week. Imagine in your life, what could it look like if you chose to do something different, to try some of these different strategies, to open up, to shift, to pivot, so that you have these aha moments, so that others can relate to you as a conscious leader, but you stand there with your heart ignited, open and powerful, and just the best version of yourself. It can happen, and it's a journey. I hope I'm touching your heart today. I'm hoping I'm igniting some little beautiful little flame in there that says, yes, I do want to do that. Because in each and every person, if you believe in evolving and growing and expanding and becoming a conscious leader, you have this drive within you, never to settle, never to give in, and to have resilience and overcome and try new things. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. From my heart to your heart, I want you to feel it. Begin to believe it. Know that anything and all things are possible for you in this beautiful moment. Just stop, breathe it in, ask yourself powerful questions. What are you thinking? What are you observing? What are you feeling? What are you wanting? Conscious leaders evoke their ability to take different parts of what they're experiencing and then use it purposefully to build relationships with themselves and relationships with others. Imagine that. Walking hand in hand with people fully, clearly, easily understanding each other, connected to the heart because you've ignited your own flame. That's the power that is here, that is yours always, every day, every hour, every minute. So thank you so much for coming in today, for listening to the Leadership Heart podcast. Again, if even just one little beautiful nugget kind of ignites your heart, your flame, like, yeah, that sounds like something I want to do. I want to build relationships with myself. I want to stand in my power. I want to build a better relationship with others so they understand me and I can ask for what I want in a way that people can understand. So reach out anytime. If you want to learn a little bit more about this, truly reach out. It is such a beautiful place to be. And imagine just being in this beautiful moment every day, being able to shift your state, being able to build these relationships because you can. We all can. There's nothing stopping you. So get out of your own way. Step on, lean in, and begin. Make the choice today. So please reach out. I'm at www.sandrahorton.com. I thank you for your beautiful time. And next couple of weeks, we're going to have some other beautiful guests coming in. And I really am excited for who is going to be coming in to share their perspective, not only on conscious leadership, but from a leadership heart's perspective. Because we're all learning, we're all living, and we can all lead as a conscious leader. So from my heart to your heart, thank you for your time. And we'll see you next week. Bye for now.